If anyone can hear this, please, let him wake up. Please, God. The voice was rough with exhaustion, trembling with years of grief and hope all tangled into one. The man's suit was wrinkled, his tie forgotten, his hands clasped around the frail little fingers of the boy who hadn't opened his eyes in almost 3 years. Around him, monitors beeped rhythmically in a sterile hospital room that had become more home to him than any penthouse or boardroom. He was Alexander Steele, once called the Lion of Wall Street, a man who had turned failing tech into empires. But in this hospital, he was just a father who had run out of answers. They called it a non-traumatic coma. No accident, no visible brain damage, just, one night, his 7-year-old son, Oliver, had gone to bed and never woken up. No one could explain it. Not the best neurologists in New York, not the specialists flown in from Germany, not even the monks he flew in from Tibet. For 3 years, he had searched the earth for a cure. For a reason, for a sign, but nothing changed, until she walked in. It was almost 2 a.m. when Nurse Liana Reyes took the night shift for someone else. She wasn't even supposed to be on that floor. But her soul had always drawn her toward silence, especially where there was suffering. She had seen the boy before from afar. Most nurses had. His case had become legend in the pediatric wing. The sleeping boy with the billionaire father. The untouched millions offered as reward. The unshed tears behind boardroom speeches. But Liana didn't care about the tabloids. When she saw Alexander that night, collapsed against the bedside with tears streaking down his proud face, something pulled at her heart deeper than medicine or logic could explain. She stepped into the room like a breeze barely noticed. Her voice came low, like a prayer wrapped in certainty. "I can wake your son." Alexander turned sharply, startled. His grief-soaked eyes scanned her, young, early 20s maybe. No older than the interns who filed charts or fetched coffee. Her badge read, Liana Reyes, RN. He almost snapped, almost told her to leave, almost cursed her for offering false hope like so many others. But something in her eyes froze him. They weren't arrogant, or naive, they were filled with knowing. "Who? What did you say?" His voice cracked. She stepped forward, her voice calm. "You heard me, Mr. Steele. I believe I can wake him. Not through machines or miracles. Through..." She paused, then whispered again, "connection." Alexander stared at her like she was insane. "Are you saying my son is choosing to stay asleep?" Liana's eyes softened. Children don't always speak the way adults do. But trauma, it doesn't have to leave bruises. Sometimes, it hides. And sometimes, they're waiting for someone who can find them. He didn't believe her. Not entirely. But he also had nothing left to lose. 5 minutes, she asked softly. "Just give me 5 minutes alone with him." He hesitated. This was his only child. His everything. But something in him, desperation, maybe, or the glimmer of something long buried, hope, nodded. She sat by Oliver's side, gently taking his small hand into hers. Her voice barely carried beyond the walls, but she spoke as if the boy could hear every syllable. She told him a story. Not a fairy tale. A story about a quiet nurse who had also once fallen asleep inside herself when her own father left. A little girl who stopped speaking for months, who learned to listen to the wind, to the quiet, to the feelings trapped inside others. She spoke about how sometimes the world gets loud, too loud, and it's easier to close your eyes than face the noise. As she spoke, Alexander watched from the door. Her voice wasn't medical, it was musical, intimate, like she was speaking directly to a soul, not a body. Then it happened. The machine beeped slightly faster. Liana's voice didn't pause. She placed her hand gently on Oliver's chest, whispered something inaudible to Alexander, and then, a flicker. The boy's fingers moved. Alexander stumbled forward, breath caught. Did he? Oliver's lips twitched. Not a full smile, not yet, but the boy moved again. And then his eyelids, slow, as if lifting a mountain, opened. Daddy, he whispered. Alexander dropped to his knees, eyes spilling decades of pain. He took his son into his arms and sobbed like a man reborn. I'm here. I never left. I'm here, Ollie. I'm here. Nurses rushed in. Alarms rang. Doctors called codes and paged neurologists. But amid the chaos, Alexander looked up and searched for Liana. She was already gone. It would take days before he tracked her down. But what mattered in that moment was not the science, or the theories, or even the media explosion that would follow. It was that a father got his son back. And a whisper started a miracle. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2 coming next. Right finger if you believe in the power of faith, kindness, and unseen miracles. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps bring more life-changing stories to light. Sparkling heart. The days that followed were a storm, of joy, of media chaos, of unexplainable wonder. News stations camped outside the hospital. Headlines screamed, "Sleeping boy wakes after 3 years, mystery nurse disappears after miracle." Some called it science, others whispered of angels, but Alexander Steele knew the truth. She had done it. That girl with eyes like quiet thunder and a voice that reached into places doctors couldn't. His board, his investors, even his lawyers advised him to let it go, to focus on Oliver's recovery, to move on. But he couldn't. Not until he found her. Not until he thanked the woman who gave him his son back, not in press conferences or donations, but in something real. He had to find Liana Reyes. He began quietly, his own private team working beneath the surface. No interviews, no cameras. He asked nurses at the hospital, but most didn't even remember her face. Some said she was a temp, others said she transferred floors. There were no clear records. But one janitor, an older man named Greg, stopped him in the hallway with hesitant eyes. "She helped my granddaughter once, no one could calm her after the surgery. But Liana, she held her hand, sang her a song. After that, my granddaughter started walking again. I think she doesn't work here full-time," said she floats, some kind of volunteer nurse. But if anyone would know where to find her, it's Sister Ava at St. Jude's Free Clinic downtown. That night, Alexander didn't go home. He drove straight to the clinic himself. No driver, no press, no bodyguard. The place was tiny, dimly lit, tucked between abandoned buildings like it was hiding from the world. He stepped inside, out of place in his designer suit. The air smelled of disinfectant and hand-me-down miracles. A few patients sat patiently on foldable chairs. A woman behind the front desk blinked at him. "Sir, are you lost? I'm looking for Liana Reyes," he said softly, his voice not the commanding tone of a CEO but the humbled plea of a father. The woman stared at him for a long moment, then finally pointed to the far room. "Second door on the right." He walked slowly, almost afraid she wouldn't be there. But when he opened the door, there she was, sitting on a stool, her back to him, gently dressing the wound of a crying little boy. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun. No makeup, just calm, healing hands and a presence that made the room warmer. "Liana," he whispered. She turned, and for a heartbeat, her breath caught too. She knew who he was. Of course she did. "I've been looking for you," Alexander said, stepping forward. "I figured," she replied quietly, a faint smile tugging her lips. "I saw the headlines." He looked around. "Why didn't you come forward?" She shrugged gently. "Because it wasn't about me." He stared at her, this woman half his age, who held herself with more grace than any world leader he'd ever negotiated with. "You changed our lives. Oliver," he's laughing again. "He eats chocolate pudding and tells terrible knock-knock jokes. Do you know what that means to me?" "I do," she whispered, looking down. "That's why I came in that night." He sat across from her, silence hanging like a sacred pause. Then he asked what had haunted him since the moment she whispered those words. "How did you do it? How did you know?" She was quiet for a long time, as if choosing how much of her soul to reveal. "When I was 7, she finally began. I was in a car crash. My father died instantly. I went into a coma for 11 days. The doctors said I might never come out. But one nurse, she sat with me every night. She told me stories, sang songs, and one day she said, 'Liana, it's okay to come back. There's love waiting for you.' And I did. When I woke up, she was gone. No one ever found her again. But I remembered how it felt, not to be pushed with wires and tubes, but to be called back with love." She looked at him then, tears soft in her eyes. "Oliver, he reminded me of myself. I felt it the moment I walked in. He wasn't lost, just waiting. I didn't do anything magical. I just told him the truth." Alexander swallowed, his voice cracking. "Can I do something for you? Anything. A foundation, a hospital wing, your own clinic, name it." Liana looked around the tiny, worn-down room and then at the child still clutching her hand. "You want to help me?" she asked. "Yes," he replied, with more truth than he'd ever put in a business deal. "Then stay," she whispered. "Not for me, for them. Help these kids who no one sees." He did. Alexander Steele, who once closed billion-dollar mergers in skyscrapers, began coming to the free clinic twice a week. He brought warm food, fixed plumbing, donated computers. He told bedtime stories to orphans. Slowly, the CEO became someone else, someone better. And through it all, Oliver came too, stronger every day. He called her Nurse Lee, and he followed her around like a puppy, claiming she had healing hands like angels. As weeks passed, Alexander and Liana grew closer. Not fast, not dramatic. It was quiet, like sunlight easing through storm clouds. He saw her heart before he ever touched her hand. And the first time he did, after a long night of laughter and helping patients, it wasn't passion that sparked. It was peace. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," he told her. "That's because you finally looked in a place no one else wanted to," she said. "Down here, with the broken. I used to think I had everything," he whispered. "Until I lost Oliver. Now I think I had nothing until I met you." They stood in the alley behind the clinic, where flowers grew through cracks in the cement. And under the stars, he kissed her, not like a billionaire claiming something, but like a man finally coming home. Months later, Alexander opened a massive healing center in the heart of the city, named after the woman who taught him what real wealth was. The Liana Reyes Center for Healing and Hope. It offered care to abandoned children, single mothers, coma patients, and forgotten souls. Oliver cut the ribbon. Liana gave the first tour. And Alexander, he stood back and smiled, not because the world was watching, but because he finally had the one thing he had always searched for but never earned until now, a family. End of chapter 2. Clapperboard. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Every click helps us share more stories that inspire love, healing, and unexpected miracles. Thank you for being part of this journey. Sparkling heart.